again. I'm Scott Apel, your host for The Prisoner here on Channel 54. In tonight's episode, A, B, and C, the prisoner's role as the mouse in his cat-and-mouse game with the village changes, that of guinea pig, as he becomes the subject of a sinister experiment designed to invade his very dreams. Tell me what a man dreams, goes an old Arab proverb, and I'll tell you what he is. Now, this is certainly true with our hero. What he dreams on his own is quite revealing, and what he's forced to dream even more so. This episode is full of delightful little surprises, not the least of which is that we're treated to a condensed secret agent episode within the prisoner's dreams, and we get yet another clue as to what his resignation was, or wasn't, all about. When I come back after the episode, we'll take a look at one of the most fascinating questions raised by this series, namely, is it real or is it only a dream? The answer, of course, is as complicated as A, B, and C. If you're a regular viewer of The Prisoner, you undoubtedly picked up on the very irregular element in tonight's episode, namely the appearance of the same number 2 for the second week in a row. The use of actor Colin Gordon as the ulcer-ridden number 2 in both the General and A, B, and C once again provides food for thought about the running order of the Prisoner episodes. The way the series is usually shown, A, B, and C is episode 3, and the General is episode 6. But by placing them back-to-back and reversing their sequence of play, as we've done, both episodes take on much greater meaning. For instance, after his failure to break the Prisoner in the General, we can now understand why this number 2 is so driven to succeed in A, B, and C. And consider in this light the heightened impact of the final shot in tonight's show. Number 1's red phone beeps insistently while number 2 cowers behind it. After 2 failures in a row, he knows what's in store for him, and we know that we'll never see this number 2 again. Perhaps what best supports our theory about episode order is that A, B, and C was filmed after the General. McGowan was so impressed with Colin Gordon's number 2 that he invited him back for an encore performance. Tonight's episode dealt with the prisoner's dreams, which brings up one of the most interesting and complex questions of the series. Are the events enacted meant to be real, or are they the dreams of a paranoid ex-secret agent? The dream theory adopts the notion that all the action of the series takes place in the mind of the prisoner, which is certainly plausible. As a secret agent burdened with confusing problems of conscience, his dreams would provide the battleground, or the playground, on which he could subconsciously work out his conflicts. In this interpretation, each number 2 would be a facet of his own personality, and all the other symbols, the bicycle, the butler, Rover, and so on, would be metaphors of his own unconscious mind, symbols for feelings that he couldn't express in his waking life. There's a lot of evidence to support the dream theory. In each episode, for instance, we see our hero pass out and then wake up in the village. Cinematically, this is a typical way of introducing a dream sequence, and we'd expect that as his dreams get more and more deep, the sequences would become more and more bizarre, which is what we witness in the course of the series. The dream theory also answers many of the thornier questions raised, like where is the village located? In this case, it's a simple answer. It exists somewhere between his left ear and his right ear. The opposing point of view is that these events are supposed to be taken literally, as the real experiences of a resigned spy. George Markstein, who developed the original concept of the prisoner, claimed to have patterned the village after real places that he had learned of during his days in British intelligence. Those who favor this literal interpretation argue that the dream theory defeats the series' main theme of man versus society, as well as unnecessarily complicating things. Are we supposed to believe, for instance, that in tonight's episode the prisoner was dreaming about his dreams? The middle ground between these two opposing viewpoints has been brilliantly expressed by our producer-director, Danny McGuire. Danny believes that the key to the puzzle lies in the prisoner's act of resignation. All motivation, action, and reaction is built around that single act, and the entire series, therefore, could consist of the thoughts our hero has while on his way to resign, a kind of stream of consciousness as he contemplates the numerous possible retributions that could come to him as a result of his resignation. For him, resigning is the way out of a spy's life, his own personal village that's been filled with doubt, suspicion, and danger. Each episode, then, is the reflection of instantaneous thoughts that fortify our hero's personal resolve to resign to gain his freedom, no matter what the cost. The imagery of the series ending in the same way it began could seem to support this theory. Well, like every other important question within The Prisoner, it seems that there are as many viewpoints as there are viewers, and obviously not enough time to go into them all. Perhaps the best conclusion we can come to about this classic 20-year-old series is that it's one that definitely resists pigeonholing. As an allegory, The Prisoner is a combination of reality, dreams, fiction, and fantasy that has been carefully designed to tell us something about the human condition. And the fact that the ideas and symbols presented in the show are ambiguous enough to allow each of us our own interpretations might give us some clue as to what it is about the human condition The Prisoner is trying to tell us. Next week's episode is entitled Living in Harmony, and it too might very well have you pondering the same question of dream versus reality, as our hero finds himself in one of the most bizarre situations yet. So until next week, I'm Scott Apel, and ABCing you. Hello again, I'm Scott Apel, your host for The Prisoner here on Channel 54. In tonight's episode, A, B, and C, the prisoner's role as the mouse in his cat and mouse game with the village changes to that of